Ivan, did you, as growing up as a kid, did you play baseball?
Back in those days, every little town had a baseball team. And we competed probably once a week, maybe twice a week. And in my area, there were about, I can't remember all of them, but I would say there were about 7 little towns, like Burnham's. Most of them were bigger than Burnham's.
Okay.
But yeah, we played out in the cornfield, in the cow pasture fields. I remember a lot of times stepping into something that wasn't too pleasant. But I always thought if I could play in that kind of rough terrain, then it made it a lot easier when I finally got to college and so forth.
Was that high school and the junior high era and all the time?
This was peculiar. Back in those days, we had a 10-grade school called a senior high. In fact, I got two senior high diplomas, one from Burnham's and one from Hudsonville. That's where we finally went. Well, I got to the point where the state said you're either going to have to go to 12 classes or 12 grades, or you're going to have to drop out. Well, they didn't have the money or the background to do it, so they just quit and went to 8 grades, and the people in our town had the choice of going to Hopkins, Allegan, Zeeland, or Hudsonville. We had those 4 choices to go. I just happened to pick Hudsonville.
What about high school then?
Then we drove back and forth. This one one youngster had a Model A Ford, I remember, and we paid him 25 cents a week to ride to school with him. So we went back and forth every day. And sometimes the baseball practice would carry over a little, and those other 4 didn't want to wait, so they'd go home, and I'd hitchhike home. Back in those days, hitchhiking was just normal. And everybody would pick you up. All you had to do was get out on the highway. I might have to walk a mile or 2 before somebody would come and pick me up. And I knew a lot of people, so it wasn't difficult.
What positions did you play in high school in baseball?
I played shortstop, center field, and I pitched occasionally. Okay. I wasn't very good as a pitcher, so I stuck to center field most of the time. We had a pretty good team in my senior year. We won the district championship. I think we were 11-1. Yeah, and I think I'm the only one left.
Okay,
I don't think
out of that team.
Out of that team, I don't think anybody else was living.
So how did you happen to get recruited to Western?
There was no recruiting. Just my brother had gone there, and in fact 2 brothers had gone there ahead of me. So it was just a foregone conclusion. Ivan's going to go to Kalamazoo. It was cool, and it was the cheapest too.
Okay.
So, it just so happened that I knew a few people that were semi-influential down at Western, and so I got along fine. Remember, I played ball with Mike Ballard, played ball with Stubby Overmeyer, who became a Tiger pitcher, and then went on to be pitcher with the Yankees, and saw him quite a bit after the war. I played, the first year I was there, the freshman coach, believe it or not, played at Western when my older brother played at Michigan State. Yeah, and I could brag about my older brother, but not myself as far as the hitter was concerned. I thought my oldest brother, and I still have it in my wallet if anybody questions it, he hit .568 in his junior year at Michigan State, and I think .667 in his senior year.
Did he play baseball after Michigan State?
He had a chance to play with the St. Louis Browns, and he was about to sign with the St. Louis Browns when General Motors gave him an offer.
Oh, okay.
So he decided that he better go with General Motors.
So he took the real job.
Yeah, that's right.
What year did you start at Western?
I started in the fall of '38, finished in '42, except I did one thing. I didn't take my practice teaching. I figured if I got killed in the war, it wouldn't do me any good, and it'd do me a heck of a lot of good to come back and get those 12 hours of practice teaching in before I went out to the teaching field. And it worked out very well.
Now at Western, how good were you at Western as a baseball player?
Well,
Brag about yourself, Evan.
I was good enough to be selected for the first all-star game that was ever played in college baseball, and it was played in Fenway Park. So I played in left field right up against the big green monster, as they call it.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, and we had, in my junior year, that was Stubby Overmeyer's last year, we won 18 in a row before we were defeated. And we lost to Michigan State by 1 run.
Oh goodness.
Yeah, and out of that team, that 1942 team, 7 of the players signed pro contracts.
From Western?
From Western.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah. And I didn't have I don't know, I just didn't. I was a good little player, but I was not a good big player. And that's what they wanted. They want the big player. They want the guy that can hit the home run. I hit the doubles, but so I knew it would be a rough road, so I didn't even give it a try. I enjoyed when I played and had a good time and did fairly well. I was co-captain for 2 years, and Charley Marr, the coach at Western, begged me to go to Penn State and get my master's degree, and he said, I'll bring you back to Western. He said, you can learn from me and become the coach someday. But I don't know, I just didn't care about it, so I didn't do it.
Joined the military. Tell us about how you got in the military.
How I got in the military. I was home on Pearl Harbor Day. I can remember like it was yesterday. Mother and Dad and I always went home once a month to get a good home-cooked meal. We were just ready to sit down, and we always turned the radio off, but for some reason or other, that particular day, we didn't turn the radio off. We were just ready, and they came out with a special report. And said Pearl Harbor had been attacked. And of course I knew what that meant for me. I knew it was going to be war and I'd have to go into the service. So I stopped at Allegan on the way going back to Western. That next day I stayed home then over the weekend, and the recruiter said, we'll let you finish your senior year, Ivan. He says, we always do that, but just as soon as you're finished your senior year, you report to the recruiting office here in Allegan. And that gave me then from December to June to either find a place in the service or get into the service. So I always wanted to fly, so I thought, well, I'll go into the Naval Air Corps. Well, then when I did get my orders, instead of to University of Iowa, they sent me back to Western. So I went back to Western for 6 weeks of intensive phys ed. I was disappointed, but boy, what a help that was. When I did get in, I'd had all that 6 weeks of physical training. I got the next orders, and not to Iowa, but to Detroit, University of Detroit. So we went down to the University of Detroit. Again, that was a blessing, because at Western, I got 30 hours of flight training. At University of Detroit, I got 45 hours of flight training. So before I got to Pensacola, I had 75 hours of flying under my belt. Then I went back home and waited not very long, and I got my orders, but it was not to Iowa, it was to the University of North Carolina. So I went down to University of North Carolina and had 12 weeks of intense athletics.
Now, when did you leave the country, get orders to?
Well, let me finish on this. When end of the first 2 weeks, by the way, one of my officers at that time became President Ford. He was down there. He was one of my officers.
Gerald Ford?
Gerald Ford. When I got home, Mother sent me a clipping that came from the Detroit Grand Rapids Free Press. He came down to interview 9 of us that were from the Grand Rapids area. It was the physical part of it was very intense. And then one morning, about the 3rd week, as we came out on the parade field, the officer said, are there any people here that played college baseball? Front and center. I went up as fast as I possibly could. I think there were 6 of us. Well, to make a long story short, we had a good team, a very good team, but first 5 or 6 games, we lost all of them. And the coach said, don't worry, he says, we're gonna have some good players coming in next week. Well, we had some good players come in next week. So we had Johnny Pesky, Ted Williams, Johnny Sain, Joe Coleman, Buddy Grimm, Buddy Hassett, who was the captain of the Yankees before he came into the service. And we didn't lose a game after that then.
Oh my goodness.
And it so happened that we played quite a bit. In fact, I was going to play for Charley Gehringer when they came out with an order, you have to cut out this baseball. We were too many hours away from doing what we're supposed to be doing. We flew into, or drove into University of Annapolis to play them, and played a lot of service teams that had all kinds of major leaguers. I remember Dominic DiMaggio. Yeah, who else? Johnny Rigney, who was an outstanding pitcher for the White Sox. I remember him very well. And it just so happened that I was good enough to play, and so I played center field. Ted Williams played left field. Harry Kraft, who was an outfielder for Cincinnati, played right field. We had Buddy Hassett on first, Buddy Grimm at second base, Johnny Pesky on shortstop, and a kid by the name of Roy Williams played third base, and I don't know whether he was a major leaguer or not. I don't remember that. But they always treated me great. When I was playing baseball, they'd always ask, "What do you want, cadet? What do you want?" And I got special treatment. And I ran into Ted Williams and Bobby Doerr when I went down to the Tiger game. Stubby was still with the Tigers at that time. He says, "If you want to see Ted Williams, he and Bobby Doerr are over there and sitting watching the batting practice, Tiger batting practice." So I went over him. He knew who I was. He remembered. He liked to. It was kind of funny. He's a great fly fisherman. I thought I was a pretty good fly fisherman. We always talked about fly fishing more than we did baseball. Yeah.
So any other memories of baseball in the military?
As I say, we didn't lose. I played 14 games with those fellows, and we didn't even come close to losing at all. And then when I came back, I went back to Western and had that 1 year to play, and that was the first year they had what they called a college all-star team. They took the dividing line, surprisingly, was the Allegheny Mountains. All the colleges to the east played all the colleges to the west. And there were guys from all over. And I was selected along with another kid from Western to play in that game. And that was the end of my career right there. And when I got through there, then I was done. That after I got through at Jacksonville, I did get into 4-engine flight training. They sent me to Hutchinson, Kansas, and I had 30 hours in B-24s. And then we, myself and a group of others that were in that squadron, went out to California. And in between that time that I finished that training, the Navy had a plane made specifically for anti-submarine patrols, and that's what I did when I got out in the Pacific. It wasn't dangerous. It was just long hours of flying over water and seeing nothing but water, which can get mighty monotonous. Then we did go down. I went down once and not shot down. However, let me emphasize that we, for some reason or other, had a complete electrical failure, and our plane just like turning off one engine after the other. We lost them all. We went down off the coast of California about 500 miles. And it was 5 o'clock in the morning. I don't know how that pilot of ours landed that plane without it all breaking into pieces, because the swells were about 12 feet high. Oh, and he had to hit that swell just right. And as I say, it was dark. In fact, the co-pilot, I happened to be navigating. My job was co-pilot, navigate. I navigate one flight, I'd co-pilot the next flight, and the other guy and I would just switch back and forth. I happened to be navigating that night when it happened. So I was, more or less, my ditching station I was all alone. The rest of the guys had somebody beside them. But I had the altimeter right there in front of me because I could see 8,000, 7,000, 6,000, 5,000, 4,000. And I had sense enough to take the stopwatch that I had and put it in my pocket. I still have it today.
Oh,
We crashed and went down. Believe it or not, the only one that had anything wrong was me, and I had just my upper lip cut, and they said you were probably thrown against the radio equipment. But we were in the water for about 12 to 14 hours. And when I read these stories about this guy that was 24 days out,
Oh, yes.
yeah, that, you know what I'm talking about, yeah. And, well, anyway.
But you were there through a hot day and...
We were there, yeah, we went down at 5 o'clock. They picked us up about 12 hours later. I think they came out with some seaplanes, but they weren't able to land on the rough water. They couldn't, so they finally came up with an idea. They put some jets on the wings. And that guy come out and he landed and we got started. And when he got on the top of one of those waves, he pushed in the old jets and they lifted us up. We bounced about 3 times before it finally took off, and so then the rest of it was just going from one. We were at Anahuac, we were at Saipan, we were at Tinian. When we were at Tinian, we could see the B-29s coming in and landing. We knew then that we had that it was all over but the shouting. So I know we were given orders: don't take any foolish chances and do anything at all.
Mm-hmm.
So. And I came home and they got me out in a hurry too.
What year was that when you got discharged?
I got discharged on October the 31st, 1945.
Okay.
And so I had that time. My brother, my older brother, was in the army, and he was in the Kasserine Pass attack in Africa. So he saw a lot of dangerous time in the service, and he was home. So he and I ice fished every day until I went back to Western. And then from Western, how did I get to Marshall? Well, I want to tell you that story. Joe came to. I was back getting my master's degree when Joe was a freshman.
That's Joe Cooper.
Yeah, Joe. Yep, Joe. And that's where I met him for the first time. And after playing with him 1 year, I was gone, but Joe made the team then. After about 6 games, he made the team, and he played. And I went to Albion. He came to Marshall. He called me up one night and he says, "You want a blind date, Evan?" I said, "Sure." Happened to be my wife, and finally ended up, and that's how I came to Marshall in 1951. Many years
So we
later.
can thank Betty for getting you to
I
Marshall.
think so. I think you can say that. Yeah, I can't think of anything else. If you can think of anything, I think I've covered the waterfront almost.
And then when you were in Marshall, you coached baseball.
Joe and I coached, yep, for 15 years. And Bruce Gray called us in. He said they made Joe assistant principal. He said, "Joe, you should be here after school." And so I said, "Well, if Joe's going to have to give it up, I'll give it up too." So we both retired. And 15 years of fun. We did very well. At least I thought we did.
You had some good teams. high
Yeah,
school
we did.
teams.
Yes, we won the Twin Valley. Gosh, I would say 5 times. Well, Lakeview was our #1 opponent.
Mm-hmm.
We beat Lakeview. We figured we had it made. Coldwater had a good team. The rest of those teams weren't that strong. So, it was fun. And
Well, great. Thank you, Ivan.
you're welcome.
I just wanted to hear your story. You were telling me about your military baseball there, and
It was. I was glad that it was over. It was an experience for sure. Yeah. Yeah. Well, I thank you for taking your time.
yeah,
Thank you very much.
yeah.
Thank you.